You're listening to the County Pulse on 104.5, 106.1, TV channel 12, and online at irlonestar.com and the County Pulse Network.
Well, good Thursday afternoon to you guys. It's Thursday, September 3rd. It's been a while, I guess, since we've been with you guys. Been over a month, I guess. Late July was the last time we were with y'all. Today we don't have too much other than a short discussion about back to school. The school year is going to be in full swing starting Tuesday, September 8th for students in Conroe ISD. So it's been a pretty interesting past few weeks as online learning started, and the ramp-up plan which the district created, which we'll be talking about in a bit, which is basically where they took small little handful of students and brought them into school on certain days just to do a trial run of all the new procedures and everything they set up. But also what's changed is we are in a different studio right now. So if anything randomly cuts out, we're going to do our best to get it fixed and whatnot. But yeah, so again, about school and whatnot, we're going to probably be giving you guys updates on that over the next several weeks as stuff comes out, new news and new policies and procedures, because so much has changed in the past, again, month and a half or whatever. I remember last time we saw you guys, the ramp-up plan wasn't even created, didn't even exist yet. So much has changed, and there's a lot more to change. And also, election season is coming up, including local elections. We're going to have the Woodlands Township Board of Directors elections coming up again November 3rd. And then a few county-level positions. But anyways, in Conroe at Lone Star Executive Airport, a 60-foot-long Lockheed Martin jet was seized by Montgomery County Precinct 2 Constable's Office. The owner of this jet had not paid their taxes on it in a number of years, and they can really only take control of this jet if the unpaid taxes exceed a certain percentage of the value of the jet itself. Apparently this thing had been sitting there for years. They purposefully hid it and covered it in tarp sitting in the back of the hangar. So they were obviously trying to conceal its presence. It's pretty crazy to think about because that jet is probably like 5 times the amount of the budget of Precinct 2 Constable's Office, which is weird to think about. And also, we have our 5th victim on Lake Conroe. I know I made that sound like a sports game. No. It's been a pretty dangerous year out on the lake. Not too many people have died since 2010, and we've already had 5 people this year die out there on the lake. Precinct 1 Constable's Office, which does the Lake Patrol Division out there, along with Texas Parks and Wildlife game wardens, they want everybody to at least have one person on a boat who's wearing a life jacket, which preferably would be the operator. There have also been dozens of BWI arrests, boating while intoxicated arrests, over the past few months, which again, most people don't think about it, but 1 drink on the water is like having 3 on land just because of the heat and everything. And again, Lake Conroe, in the past few years, the amount of people going out on the lake has grown like crazy. So safety is becoming ever more important. The Waterway Arts Festival in the Woodlands is officially canceled. It was supposed to run through October 17th through the 18th, so it's going to be a 2-day event. They're going to be doing virtual online events from the 14th to the 18th. They're going to have more details to come about this. You can visit the Woodlands Township-tx.org to get more information. But the in-person part of this event was completely canceled altogether, unfortunately. So we're going to be back in just one moment. Going to be providing you guys some updates from area school districts, as well as what we as students think is going to be coming down within the next few weeks as we go back to school. See you guys in a minute. You're listening to the County Pulse on 104.5, 106.1, and on demand at irlonestar.com.
Ice down that igloo cooler,
Good.
Tank of gas at all
We
to do it.
have
I can feel
3
a good
minutes.
one coming on. Throw in Ray Wiley Hubbard, sing along to Redneck Mother. Any blues I had before are gone. Another working week is over. No chance of staying sober. I can feel a good one coming on. Yeah, we're gonna roll all night. We're gonna get the feeling right. We're gonna keep this party rocking till the break of dawn. Yeah, I can feel a good one coming on. Three blondes in a ragtop Mustang followed us down to the lake and didn't have to think about that too long. Skinny dipping in the bright moonlight, situation couldn't be more right. I can feel a good one coming on. Yeah, we're gonna roll all night. We're gonna get the feeling right. We're gonna keep this party rocking till the break of dawn. Yeah, I can feel a good one. Feel like a good one. I can feel a good one coming on. Yeah, we're gonna roll all night. We're gonna get the feeling right. We're gonna keep this party rocking till the break of dawn. We're gonna roll all night. We're gonna get the feeling right. We're gonna keep this party rocking till the break of dawn. Yeah, I can feel a good one. Yeah, feel like a good one. I can feel a good one coming on. Yeah, oh, now. Now it's a good one, yeah.
All right, guys, welcome back. So in the studio today, we have 3 special guests that are also joining our team. So I'm gonna let them introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Isabella Forstier, and I'm a junior at College Park High School.
Hi, I'm Jason Scherer. I'm also a junior at College Park High School.
And hello, it's Sanat Nair, a junior as well.
Awesome, yeah. So we just decided to give you all a little bit of updates regarding going back to school, as we're all juniors and seniors. We all attend College Park High School, which is, I guess, like on 242 in the Woodlands. So specifically, what we have kind of like gotten an idea of as to how it's going back is we have gotten a lot of information on what the school is going to be doing in regards to like asynchronous learning, which is simply having an online and in-person option for students. I personally went in for their ramp-up day, which is kind of like an information slash like trial run for those who are going in person, and they have been giving out more information as to what the online students are going to be doing. But yeah, what do y'all think? I guess I can just open this question up to y'all. How do y'all think their procedure has changed since the last time we were talking?
Well,
Any
I
ideas?
think for sure a big change, like you said, the ramp-up day and actual creating a process
Right.
for the weeks to come about how we are actually going to go back and who's going back.
Right, yeah.
I think it was smart how they divided us up into 4 different sections, correct? Yeah, so 4 different sections by alpha order, of course. So you can have like a little sample size, for example, and kind of see how it's going to work out, and like how we mentioned earlier, try out the new processes and everything to that extent. So, Rawson, you were the one that actually went out
Right.
to College Park. out of all of us. So could you possibly talk about some of the regulations they have right now in
Yeah,
place?
sure. So, first off, like what you mentioned about the alpha order, that has like definitely been a big part of like the whole ramp up day, right? Uh, Roughly a quarter of students that are going to be going back actually went back on each day, right? Which definitely makes it easier for teachers and for the students to just kind of like get acclimated to the process, right? Definitely helped me, right? In regards to like what it looked like inside the classroom, uh, my like my classes usually have probably like this year would have had like 20 to maybe 30 students max, right? But in the classes I went back to, the largest class I had was 5 students, including me. The smallest one was 2 students, including me. So already that's kind of like an interesting dynamic. In regards to like what procedures were actually put in place, it was definitely there's a serious emphasis on social distancing, right? It's very very easy to social distance 2 students in like one large classroom, right?
Right.
But my French teacher had a system in which like each like row would be alternating between classes, right? So students can only sit in like certain rows in like first period, but the second period would sit in the other rows, right? So she has time to like clean those and separate those people. I know my calculus teacher was kind of like very, very serious about keeping people socially distanced. So was my physics teacher, and I also saw everybody wearing a mask too, which was very surprising.
That's good.
But yeah, I think there definitely is like an air of like seriousness in regards to the whole thing, and I'm very, very happy with the way that at least like College Park has been handling it. So I guess we'll just see how many people go back, but from what I've heard, it's gonna be like probably less than a quarter of students. So
Yeah, there's not gonna be many people going back. I think the district, they have like some portal you can go to, and the portal, it says like they'll have like daily case numbers for
Mhm.
each school and how many people are like going back in person.
okay.
It was some low level. I think it was definitely below 40%.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm not surprised, but I mean, do y'all think that's like reasonable? Do y'all have any ideas as to what we could do even to improve this process, maybe?
Well, I would actually like to know a little bit more because you talked
Okay.
about how it is in the classrooms,
Right.
but how is it in the hallways? Because I'm sure there's a lot of
Right.
like misbehaving in the hallways that people get close to one another and touch.
Right.
So,
Yeah. So generally, I mean, everybody in the hallways that I saw had their mask on. I only saw one person wearing it incorrectly, where her nose was like exposed. Right. It was
Right.
like, right. But overall, like, people were just like pretty socially distanced. I mean, if you have like a smaller student body, right, in these large hallways, like naturally the hallways aren't going to be like very very crowded or like clustered up. I think most people like want their personal space anyways. So luckily enough, at least on the ramp up day, I didn't see like many like large groups. A lot of people were socially distancing, staying like to their side of the hallway. Not even like a lot of talking or socializing, honestly. Like maybe like 1 or 2 people like walking to class together, but like not like large groups. And another like interesting thing I saw, at least for like a little bit, right? Because I didn't actually go to lunch, right? But the lunchroom was also very very like well organized in the sense that like most tables were socially distanced, and I was actually surprised that not many people were even at lunch, because like typically they split up the student body into fourths anyway for lunch, right?
Mhm.
The fact that they're splitting up like the going back to school population into fourths for lunch, right, probably makes it a lot easier, right? So again, I was kind of surprised as to how socially distanced everyone is, but it's definitely good to see. Yeah.
So you mentioned hallways, right? So one of my friends told me actually that they created it so it's one way.
Mhm.
Is
Oh,
that
yeah,
correct?
That's right. Yeah, I completely even forgot about that.
How effective
Uh,
was it during ramp up day, and how effective do you think it would be going into bringing everybody in?
I think there are like inherent like organizational benefits to having like one-way hallways, right? Like just the traffic flow is better, especially in like congestion zones, like around doorways and stuff, where you have like students like moving from one wing to another. Like the thing that comes to my mind is going from the freshman wing to like the commons, right, for College Park specifically. In regards to like how this will affect COVID-19 social distancing, I definitely think it will be beneficial. again, just the improved flow in the hallways allows students to socially distance better, right? You have more space and people are getting to their classrooms quicker. And in regards to enforcement, this is actually done really well. Like, I was trying to go one way because I didn't even see the signs, right? But the teachers were making it very clear that, like, some stairwells were only one way, right? Some hallways were, like, only one way. And this is really only being enforced in areas that really need it too. So you're not really seeing this, like, unnecessarily enforced, like, in the commons, right? But in the freshman wing, in particular for College Park, it definitely was needed and it has been working, I think. So, but yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I completely forgot. But yeah.
So going back to school, like for the first time in months, what do you think about that compared to online school? So like, what's your preference? Because none of us have been back yet, but
Right.
we've only
Right.
experienced online school. So what do you think?
Yeah. So my personal preference is like in-person school because it just keeps me accountable, right? Although I know that there are like a lot of students out there that are driven on their own and they can manage their coursework on their own and they can wake up early. I cannot. I'm not a morning person. I'm not very responsible, right? So I feel like it's beneficial for me to go back and be in the structure, right? So just on that point, it's gonna vary between person to person, right? But I feel like my like in-person experience was pretty good considering that, you know, Corona is happening. A lot of my classrooms were like reversed classroom, which means that like, you know, we did our notes at home just like the online students, but we just had like extra help from our teachers, right? Whether that come from like more time to ask questions, whether that come from being able to work out examples on the board with the teacher, being able to work with students in person, obviously social distance, right? So I think those are benefits that in-person students will see that online like students will. And I think we remember, at least I remember talking about that kind of like disparity last month too, right? In regards to like the social distance, like in-person versus online, right? Like you just have like you have better access to your teachers and to their resources, and I think that's why I prefer it. Although I'm also not in a position where if I do get coronavirus, that my family will be like affected necessarily, because there aren't many like, I guess, like immunocompromised people in my household. So, but yeah, I definitely prefer in person. But on that topic, I'm kind of interested to see like how they change the online learning to reflect the like growing popularity or like even just like changes with the in-person, right? For instance, one thing that does come to mind that actually was brought up today was this.
It's going to trigger some people.
Yeah, there was this email. Was it emailed to a student on accident, on purpose? Do you remember, Jack?
I think it might have been just some teacher like
Talking,
releasing
like-
the news before the rest of them did.
Right, but essentially, an email was sent out to like a few students or one student that basically hinted at the use of like anti-cheating software, right? Test proctoring software. The software that was referenced specifically was called Proctorio, and the thing that is concerning students is that the ability of the software is not only do you have like video on, microphones on, stuff like that, but there's also eye tracking.
Yes.
And this is supposed to be even on top of lockdown browsers, right? So I'm definitely curious to see how like test security is going to develop as COVID goes on. But
And not only do they have like the eye tracking, they have like real people with that company who like review footage whenever it gets flagged. Like they'll sit there and watch the whole thing whenever it gets
Yeah.
flagged.
I know they had mentioned something that if you were at home, and I think this went along with that email, of like
Yeah.
you'd either have to go to the school and take it in the class period that you have, your
Right.
tests, or go after school, which kind of defeats the purpose if you're staying home to stay away from kids.
Exactly.
Or you'd have to take it through Proctoria, I guess. And so that's
Yeah.
going to be very interesting going forward.
Yeah, I definitely, yeah, it definitely will be interesting. And I think it's kind of unnecessary too, because I think the test security that we have now, like, it's kind of like super difficult to like prevent open note test taking, right? But I mean, like for my AP Physics C test, right, we don't really necessarily have enough time to even use notes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can't go back on other questions too. So I think like there are certain like test security features that we already have that kind of, I think, are enough to the point where like we're really getting to like the definition of a test. It's just like to see if you know the material, right? And I think teachers are smart enough to structure their tests and their test security so that students aren't necessarily like inadvertently affected by the test security software, right? Like, and another example of this too is I was taking an AP Econ test in school, right? On my ramp up day, and some people who brought laptops couldn't get Lockdown Browser to work during the class period, right? I didn't have an issue, but it really is just kind of unfortunate because, you know, that kind of messes up their schedule too, right? They just spent an hour in a class period trying to tinker with Lockdown Browser. So we'll just see how that develops, and I assume that as the school gets more familiar with these test security softwares and programs, that they'll become better at administering it. But that's just kind of like, we have to wait until it happens kind of thing.
Right.
Well, one of the things I wanted to say is,
Yeah.
like you, I prefer in-person learning much more because I think it just helps me learn the material much
Right.
easier. Now, I elected to go in person, and one of my biggest concerns was, are all my friends going to have the advantage of open note tests? And I won't. But
Right.
like you said, that Proctorio software that has eye tracking and all that, that does sort of level the playing field and still is lets people make a decision about whether they want to go back, whether they want to go
Right.
online,
Yeah.
and it still preserves like all the same testing environments. So
Ye-
that makes me happy, feel better about the school system.
Yeah, and like teachers have been kind of like vague on like whether like what the in-person testing environment is gonna look like, right?
Right.
Especially with like that disparity and like, you know, one student's being watched, another one isn't, right? So I guess it's just kind of like on the teachers to like clearly establish what their expectations are for the test. Like, for instance, like one of my teachers was pretty open about having open notes, but you know, they don't expect us to even have the opportunity to use the notes because of the time of the test. Whereas another teacher like said verbatim that they'll judge us if we use open notes, but they can't stop us, right? So it's all like, I think like a teacher to teacher thing. So I think again, it's like one of those time will tell kind of situations. We'll just see what happens, and if hopefully, fingers crossed, the school like happens upon an equitable solution. But I don't know, we'll see.
You know what would be interesting?
Mm-hmm.
If they did like a study on what the grades look like for the kids going in school
Right.
versus that online.
Yeah, I mean, I would
You know.
actually, I'd be interested to see if there's just like a disparity in the type of like students that are staying in person or going
Yeah.
online, right? Like, the thing that kind of like brought this to my attention was that one of my English teachers who teaches level English, right, said that like no student showed up to her like level English class, but like a lot of students showed up for her AP class, right? So are AP students more inclined to go in person, right? Like, I guess like another like side of that is a lot of academy students are not going in person when you expect them to, right? You'd think that they would try to take advantage of that. So it is kind of uncertain as to if there's like a certain character or certain kind of student that is more inclined to go in person than, you know, stay online. So I don't know.
Right.
But
And back to what you were saying about that study, if they tried to do a study between at home and people who are taking the test in the school environment, how would you adjust for that if there is a disparity? Like, is there a fair way to assess that and make up for the difference?
right.
You know, going back to what you said, Ross, and with the background of the student who's coming to school and who's not coming to school,
Right.
I think, you know, it'd be interesting to see, but, you know, we're still under a virus, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, a pandemic, sorry. Same thing, right? Yeah. But, you know, it's just, you can't take it as hard on them, given that their life may be at risk, or, you know, those who
Yeah.
are associated with them. So that's also like a little factor into that, possibly. So
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just kind of hoping that we get through this quickly so that when y'all are seniors and when we go to college, we don't have to like work through the same system.
right, yeah,
Like our college application process has already been like
Messed up.
like, right? And as long as ours is like still prevalent, it's going to compound like the effects on our college application process. Like apparently Yale and Harvard are saving 20% of their class of 2025 seats for gap year students, right? Which, you know,
Wow.
kind of kills like admission rates for class of 2025 high school seniors, right?
Mhm.
And in addition, it also is kind of difficult to like really gauge what applications are going to look like when a lot of schools are test optional but not test blind, right? So, you know, some students who were fortunate to take it last year or to take standardized testing last year, right, may have an upper advantage, may not, just depending on what their test score is, whereas another student who was depending on a high test score may not have the opportunity, right? So hopefully coronavirus is not an issue when y'all take your standardized test and when y'all are applying at college, but it's definitely affected class of 2025 pretty significantly. We're class of 2021, college class of 2025, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting when we go to college, because I mean, a lot of people are going to be taking a gap year, but then again, there's just so much that could change that there's like no way to predict it.
Right.
I just, next summer is going to be very interesting.
Yeah. And we'll even see what happens like this winter too.
Mhm.
If we have like an increase in coronavirus cases, especially with schools coming back.
Yeah.
So it's just all up in the air. Just fingers crossed it doesn't compound the negative effects that we've already felt, I guess.
Yeah, especially with like travel around like the holidays and stuff. Just in general, I mean, it's gonna be very different this year, like in November, December, January, all that, the winter months.
Right. Yeah. I don't know.
Wow.
But do y'all have any closing thoughts on that?
I just had a question,
Yeah.
Rawson. So you saw how many kids came to school today. Let's say you kind of extrapolate that by 4 or 5,
Right.
like the amount. How do you think it's still sustainable? What schools do?
That question is kind of hard to answer because
Right, yeah, it's pretty hard.
I do think that there is a certain student that is more likely to go into school than another, and I may have a biased perspective as to like what kind of populations I'm seeing in school, right? I mean, I'm taking like mostly like higher level classes, right? I may not be seeing the realities of like 2/3 of the student body,
Right.
right? But just off of what I saw in the hallways, right, and at lunchrooms, I have a feeling that it's going to be tough, right? But it's not impossible. In classrooms, it definitely seems doable, but again, that depends on the class, right? Some like athletic programs are having like 90% of their students come in, right? Whereas AP classes may only see like 5. So it's all up in the air, and it's really classroom to classroom. But I think that CISD has put itself in the best position that it can to manage it, and we'll just kind of see what happens, honestly. If the worst case scenario is everyone goes back online, right? It's not like they're going to shut down school or like kneecap teachers like last quarter. So we'll just see what happens.
Yeah, it's definitely different than it was towards the end of last year.
Right.
Because I remember you could do all your work in like an hour and be done for the day.
Yeah. Exactly.
And tests didn't exist. But now, the plan like the district has come up with and everything, I'm very impressed because they've thought about every possible little detail that needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
And you need to.
Yes.
You need to.
Exactly. I mean, just for comparison, like I have a friend who lives in California, and their entire school is online, and they have hour-long Zoom lectures for like 4 or 5 class periods. So I don't know if we're lucky or not, but our response is definitely not like consistent with like the entire nation, right?
Right.
I think CISD is definitely trying their best to come up with the best solution, not just a common solution. So.
Yeah, because we get a lot of people that think about 50,000 students.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a lot of people.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Does anybody have any other details that you want to add?
No?
We could.
I guess we'll have to see
Yeah.
what happens
But
next.
It's yet to come.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Well, again, as I said at the beginning, election season is starting to come up pretty soon, so we're going to be having some exclusive interviews coming up over the next few weeks. So be sure to check our website at countypulse.org. We'll be creating different events. You'll be able to actually see what the next show is going to be about. And we'll publish those in about a week advance. Again, you're listening to the County Pulse on Lone Star Community Radio, Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, TV 12, and online at irlonestar.com. Have a great week.
2 6-packs of Shiner, 99-cent butane lighter, Lucky Strikes and a 5th of Patron. Ice down that igloo cooler. Tank of gas that ought to do her. I can feel a good one coming on. Throw in Ray Wiley Hubbard, sing along to Redneck Mother. Any blues I had before are gone. Another working week is over, no chance of staying sober. I can feel a good one coming on. Yeah, we're gonna roll all night. We're gonna get the feeling right. We're gonna keep this party rocking till the break of dawn. Yeah, I can feel a good one coming on. 3 blondes in a ragtop Mustang followed us down to the lake and didn't have to think about that too long. Skinny dipping in the bright moonlight, situation couldn't be more right. I can feel a good one coming on. Yeah, we're gonna roll all night. We're gonna get the feeling right. We're gonna keep this party rocking till the break of dawn. Yeah, I can feel a good one. Feel like a good one. I can feel a good one coming on. Yeah, we're gonna roll all night. We're gonna get the feeling right. We're gonna keep this party rocking till the break of dawn. We're gonna roll all night. We're gonna get the feeling right. We're gonna keep this party rocking till the break of dawn. Yeah, I can feel a good one. Yeah, feel like a good one. I can feel a good one coming on.